He looked pretty good, didn't he?
Oh, there you go. There you go. Get your fighting over it and get it. Did you cast out?
No, I'm dropped right down.
Yeah, he got like the T.
Greenfish.
All right, so the Icey Guides tournament is always one of my favorite tournaments that we have for the year. It's a good time because I get to spend a little bit more time on the water with it being around Christmas break, and we have that opportunity to kind of really pattern these fish, follow them, see what's going on throughout the day, and that's a whole lot of fun going into the tournament because you just really feel like you got a good game plan put together. One thing that we were doing each time we went up here to Holston is we were starting back in Friendship, and when we'd start back there, we'd put in this time and we'd get bites on Kitech, we'd get a few bites on a long A, and that kind of fizzled out by the end of these trips and by tournament day there on New Year's Day. But we started to see that by 9 o'clock you were done. There was no point in hanging around there any longer. There was no point in spending any more time. Now we had heard some fish getting caught up under the docks deeper that way. I think they were moving over there once they got done feeding for that morning. We didn't mess with that or try to figure that out later. But what we did was we knew that was going to be the deal. So at 9 o'clock, we knew we were going to cut that off and we were going to get out of there. So that allowed us to go focus on other things. And that's important about that time on the water, kind of knowing when you need to be somewhere. That timing piece is such a big deal. So knowing that 9 o'clock was kind of the shutdown time for that flat there in Friendship, then we could move on, and we really focused our time in the afternoons on these practices, looking for deep fish, looking for fish that would bite the fly. And that's what we found, and we felt like we'd put together a really good game plan. So when me and Snyder started back in Friendship on New Year's Day for the Icey Guide tournament, we were able to pick up 3 fish on the Kitech and leave there with a good start to a limit. We had a 383, I believe it was. We had a largemouth that was a little over 3, and then one that was 2 3/4 thereabouts, I believe. And that was a good start. They gave us some confidence, allowed us to settle down, and then we were able to move forward and really focus in on the fly and the Damiki bites that we had found. Now with the fly, Snyder had caught a couple of 4 to 4.5 pound fish in practice, and we were really hoping, that was kind of what we were leaning on for our kicker fish to come in, was to find one of those 4.5s on the fly later on.
He's a good
And
start.
that just never did materialize. We did catch our 3rd biggest bass on the fly a little bit later on in the day, but we never found those big kickers that we needed to get us up around that 17 to 17.5 pound range. Now that would not have scared the winning weight in this tournament,
On
because
the
that
bank.
was
Okay.
up around 21 pounds, or I believe 21 pounds.
On the
And
bank.
then they paid back to 17. So it could have got us close to that check range there, but that just never materialized for us. But again, the game plan was solid. That once we left here, we went and focused on those Damiki fish. Now, the thing about the
Did you hit?
Damiki fish was you really had to
All right, I'm
follow
gonna stay in the
and
water for a
hunt
second.
for those wolf packs that were out there moving around through those bait balls. And we found some good schools back in Mitten, Riddle Creek, and then back in Jacobs Creek as well. Now, we
Okay.
never touched Jacobs Creek in the actual tournament day. Me and Dad did that on the practice day. But you really had to follow them
Yeah, it
around.
is,
You really had to move and look for them. But there was a couple times, and you'll see it on the video here in just a little while, that, I would get bumped, and then Snyder would get bit, and then he lost his, and I got bit immediately after that. So there was a few times there that I was really expecting some double ups to happen that just never did, and to bolster our weight a little bit more, get us maybe a couple more 3-pounders. But the heavier bag, or the heavier weight, the better bass just never showed up for us.
Okay.
Now
Crap.
there were people talking
You're in
about
my
top lining was a really good pattern for that day. People had started to turn on in that week, and that's going to continue on, just kind of like that fly. Snyder's got a lot of confidence in that fly, and that pattern's going to continue to play throughout this entire winter, through March, and possibly even in a little bit of the first there of April, as those fish start to move up and think about spawning and that water warms back up. But for Snyder, he really likes it when it's getting down around that 50-degree mark, and that's where we were here in this tournament. Water temperatures had just kind of started hitting around 50, maybe touching 49 in a couple places. But that's prime for when you're talking about that fly and you're talking about top lining. Now, with that fly, he doesn't have a lot of hair on his fly, and he'll kind of switch up between some orange and some red there with that green. As far as the Damiki goes, one thing that I was doing a little bit differently is I was throwing a chartreuse head in that VMC head. Don't know if that was helping me out, but again, there's a lot of bait down there. I felt like it was giving me a little bit of a more consistent bite in the practice, so I stuck with it. He was throwing more of a natural head, and he was actually dropping a Kitech, where I was dropping an actual Damiki in more of a natural shad color. But again, it was a really good tournament. Again, we knew that we were going to be around that 15-pound mark if we got our bites. We had been catching 15 pounds in our best 5 the last couple times we'd been out. So that was kind of like the goal, and knowing like you're around that quality of fish. The biggest thing is we just didn't get those kickers to show up for us that day to bump us on up. But again, great tournament. One of my favorite tournaments of the year because of the time we get to spend on the water. And it's always fun when we get to go out there and catch a limit. We got to cull a few times in this tournament. So that's always nice that you're getting out there to play that game. You're on fish well enough to do that. But again, we played the game plan just as we expected to and wanted to. We had our weight that we were kind of aiming for. So like all those little check boxes, that you put in your mind as you're heading into a tournament, all those things were there. So it was a whole lot of fun. I always look forward to fishing this time of year in East Tennessee. The smallmouth are just great. You can do different things. Like I got this one titled that we mixed it up on Holston. I mean, we were fishing from nothing, no feet of water. Those first few fish he caught on the Kitech, to the Damiki that we were dropping in about 80 foot of water. Those bait balls were moving around out there. So we really mixed it up, had a good game plan, had a lot of fun. Guys, we'll see y'all in the next episode of Chasing Ghosts.